The fashion mogul's voice cut through the crowded room like a blade. "Security! Someone needs to escort this woman out. She's clearly lost." Every head turned. Every camera focused. The live stream exploded with 50,000 viewers suddenly paying attention to what was about to become the most brutal public humiliation in fashion history. Zara Monroe stood frozen in the spotlight, wearing a black thrift store dress and silver heels covered in scratches. The entire Echelon Runway Showcase had gone dead silent. Hundreds of aspiring models, fashion executives, and online viewers watched as Genevieve Laurent, the most powerful woman in luxury fashion, pointed directly at her. "Look at those shoes," Genevieve continued, her voice dripping with disgust. "Did she walk here from a homeless shelter?" The crowd erupted in nervous laughter. Phones came out. Social media lit up with clips of the moment. The hashtag homeless shoes started trending within minutes. But here's what nobody knew. Genevieve Laurent had just made the biggest mistake of her career. Zara had been homeless for 3 years. She'd slept in subway stations, survived on food stamps, and learned to model by practicing in department store mirrors when security wasn't looking. Those scratched heels? She'd worn them to 17 job interviews, 8 auditions, and countless nights walking the streets with nowhere to go. The woman everyone was laughing at had rebuilt her life from nothing. She'd taught herself to sew using YouTube videos in public libraries. She'd created a viral social media following by transforming garbage into runway-worthy fashion. She'd survived foster care, abuse, and poverty that would have broken most people. And now she was standing in front of the fashion world's elite, being mocked for the very shoes that had carried her through hell. "Ma'am," the security guard approached hesitantly. "You need to leave." The room held its breath. Cameras zoomed in on Zara's face, expecting tears, shame, or retreat. The live stream viewer count hit 100,000 as word spread across social platforms. Everyone wanted to witness the breakdown, but Zara didn't break. She looked directly at Genevieve Laurent, the woman who had just tried to destroy her in front of the world, and smiled. "I'm not leaving," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I'm scheduled to walk, and I'm going to walk." The announcer, panicking as he watched the social media storm explode, grabbed his microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, our next model, Zara Monroe." Genevieve's face went white. She had expected humiliation, tears, and a quick exit. Instead, she was watching a woman she had just publicly attacked prepare to take the most important stage in fashion. The crowd buzzed with anticipation. The live stream hit 200,000 viewers. Fashion bloggers were frantically typing. This wasn't a casting anymore, it was a showdown. Zara took her first step toward the runway, and the entire room leaned forward. The scratched silver heels that had been the source of mockery now seemed to catch the light differently, as if they were about to tell a story nobody was prepared to hear. What happened next would break the internet, end careers, and change the fashion industry forever. The moment Zara's foot hit the runway, every rule of fashion was about to be shattered. Instead of the quick, mechanical walk every other model had performed, Zara moved like she was claiming territory. Slow, deliberate, powerful. Each step said, "I belong here more than any of you." The audience, expecting to watch a homeless woman embarrass herself, found themselves witnessing something they'd never seen before. This wasn't modeling, this was warfare. Zara's walk was hypnotic. She moved with the confidence of someone who had survived the unthinkable and emerged stronger. The scratched heels that had been mocked now seemed like battle scars, proof of a journey that had forged her into something unbreakable. Halfway down the runway, something unprecedented happened. The room went completely silent. Even Genevieve Laurent, who had been whispering insults to her colleagues, stopped talking and stared. The live stream viewer count exploded. 500,000, 750,000, 1 million. The servers started crashing as the entire internet seemed to discover this moment simultaneously. If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and won't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We are just a small channel trying to grow. And do not forget to comment where you're watching from. Thank you, and back to our video. Who is she? Became the question flooding every social media platform. Video clips of her walk were shared 100,000 times in the first hour. Fashion bloggers who had never heard her name were calling her the most magnetic presence in fashion history. But the real shock came when Zara reached the end of the runway. She didn't turn around immediately like the others. Instead, she stood there, looking directly at Genevieve Laurent, the woman who had tried to humiliate her, the woman who had mocked her poverty, the woman who was about to learn that sometimes the people you try to destroy are the ones who end up destroying you. Zara's expression wasn't angry or vindictive. It was something far more terrifying, completely unbothered. She looked at Genevieve like she was looking at someone who had already lost. Then she turned and walked back, and the entire fashion world lost its mind. The live stream hit 2 million viewers. Fashion magazines were already scrambling to identify her. Her name was trending worldwide. The casting that was supposed to showcase Genevieve's ability to spot talent had instead exposed her complete blindness to it. Behind the scenes, chaos was erupting. Marisol Kwan, an assistant judge, was frantically trying to get Zara's contact information. She had recognized her from social media, the homeless woman who had built a following by creating high fashion from thrift store finds. This was the woman who had been surviving on the streets while creating content that inspired millions. But Genevieve was not done. Her reputation was crumbling in real time, and she was desperate to regain control. When the initial 12 models were announced, she made sure Zara's name was nowhere on the list. "We select based on professionalism and industry standards," she announced to the cameras. "Not viral moments." The crowd was stunned. The woman who had just delivered the most talked about walk in fashion history had been rejected. Social media exploded with outrage. #JusticeForZara started trending. The fashion world was in revolt. But what nobody knew was that the most powerful man in fashion had been watching. Marcus Beaumont, the founder of Cieli d'Or, was supposed to be in London. Instead, he was on his private jet, flying back to New York after his team had frantically called him about the social media storm. He had watched every video, read every article, and understood immediately what his creative director had missed. This wasn't just about a model. This was about the future of fashion itself. As his plane touched down at JFK, Marcus was already planning how to fix the catastrophic mistake his company had just made on live television. He had built Cieli d'Or to find the extraordinary, not the expected. And the extraordinary was being rejected by his own team. The final ceremony was about to begin, with Genevieve preparing to crown her chosen 12. She thought she had survived the crisis, that the internet's attention would move on to something else. She had no idea that her boss had just walked into the building, and he was furious. Marcus Beaumont burst through the backstage doors like a man on a mission, and every person in his path scrambled to get out of his way. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had built a fashion empire from nothing. The final ceremony was beginning. Genevieve Laurent stood on stage, smugly preparing to announce the 12 models who would receive contracts. She had convinced herself that the social media storm would blow over, that her decision to reject the viral sensation would be forgotten. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Marcus strode onto the stage without announcement, without permission, and without any regard for the carefully planned event. The audience erupted in shocked whispers. The live stream, which had maintained over 1 million viewers, suddenly spiked to 3 million as word spread that something unprecedented was happening. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus announced, his voice booming across the venue, "there has been a mistake." Genevieve's face went pale. She tried to maintain her composure, but everyone could see the panic in her eyes. The most powerful man in fashion was about to publicly overrule her, and she was powerless to stop it. "I built this company to find the rare, the extraordinary, the voices that deserve to be heard," Marcus continued. "Today, we almost made the biggest mistake in our company's history." He gestured toward the crowd, and every camera followed his gaze to Zara Monroe, who stood among the rejected hopefuls with the quiet dignity of someone who had survived far worse than this. "There is only one person in this room who made the entire world stop and pay attention. There is only one person who reminded us what real fashion is supposed to be about." and we almost let her walk away. The audience was on its feet. The livestream chat was moving so fast it was unreadable. Fashion bloggers were frantically typing headlines about the most dramatic reversal in industry history. Zara Monroe, Marcus called out. Will you accept an exclusive global contract with Echelon? The room exploded. The 12 chosen models watched in shock as their moment of triumph was overshadowed by something far more significant. The woman who had been mocked, humiliated, and rejected was being elevated to the highest position in fashion. But it was what happened next that truly destroyed Genevieve Laurent's career. Desperate to save face, she grabbed the microphone. I want everyone to know that I always believed in Zara's potential. She lied, her voice shaking. The earlier comments were taken out of context. I was simply testing her resilience. The audience was silent. Everyone had seen the videos. Everyone had witnessed the cruelty. Her attempt to rewrite history was so transparent it was almost painful to watch. Then Zara spoke. Real elegance doesn't humiliate others to build itself up, she said, her voice carrying across the silent venue. It lifts people up instead of tearing them down. The words hit like a thunderclap. The contrast was devastating. Genevieve's desperate lies versus Zara's quiet truth. The quote would be on magazine covers within hours, remembered as the moment when authentic grace triumphed over manufactured power. Social media exploded. The hashtag Real Elegance trended worldwide. Fashion influencers posted videos about the stark difference between the two women. Genevieve's earlier mockery was played side by side with Zara's graceful response, and the comparison was brutal. Within 48 hours, Genevieve Laurent was fired from Echelon. The official statement cited incompatible values, but everyone knew the truth. Her inability to recognize talent, combined with her public cruelty toward a woman who had become a global inspiration, had made her position impossible. Zara's rise was meteoric. Her first campaign broke every engagement record in fashion history. The scratched silver heels that had been mocked became iconic, selling replicas for thousands of dollars. She launched Worn, Not Worthless, a movement that celebrated women who had overcome adversity to achieve success. The thrift store dress and famous heels were donated to the Fashion Institute of Technology, displayed with a simple placard. The moment everything changed, students would stand before them, learning about the day when authentic grace defeated manufactured cruelty. But perhaps the most satisfying revenge was the simplest: Zara's success. Every magazine cover, every campaign, every standing ovation was proof that Genevieve Laurent had been spectacularly wrong. The woman she had tried to destroy had become the most sought-after model in the world. Fashion Week shows began changing their casting approach. Agencies started seeking out models with compelling stories rather than just conventional beauty. The industry publication Fashion Forward called it the Zara effect, noting that her rise had coincided with a cultural shift toward valuing substance over surface. Years later, when fashion students studied this period, they would point to Zara Monroe's walk as the moment when the industry remembered its true purpose. Not just to sell clothes, but to tell stories that matter. The woman who had been mocked for her shoes had walked into fashion history, proving that sometimes the most powerful revenge is simply refusing to stay down when someone tries to knock you out. Genevieve Laurent's cruel joke had backfired in the most spectacular way possible. By trying to humiliate Zara Monroe, she had inadvertently created a legend and destroyed her own career in the process. The scratched heels had the last laugh after all. If you enjoyed this story, hit the subscribe button for more inspiring stories and don't forget to like and share.